They're back. What was it? Almost a year ago that we did this. It was a show when I first started doing this streaming venture, and we called it MAGA's Worst Nightmare, because these are where the guys are still are the guys who are out there fighting the good fight, not just against MAGA, but for truth and facts and some decency in politics and even in the media. So welcome, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. This is a very special edition of the show. On April 12th, it was, of 2024. Just a little over a year ago, I hosted MAGA's Worst Nightmare, a roundtable conversation. Unfortunately, that conversation did not push Joe Biden and later Kamala Harris over the finish line. And I wanted to bring the panel back to reflect on, the past year, the past few months, and the Trump administration. So my guests tonight are, once again, look who's with me: Brian Tyler Cohen, Cenk Uygur, and Mr. David Pakman. Not in any special order. It's just, Good to see you guys. How are you?
Good seeing you too. Thanks for having us.
Good. Let's start with the breaking news. The market is down today significantly after Jerome Powell released a statement today saying the level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include a higher inflation and slower growth. That's what Powell said. Now, there had been, hope that the market would sort of regulate itself or whatever after all of this, a week or two of uncertainty. It looks like they had come to some sort of consensus, but not today after this statement. You are an economics major. Am I right, Mr. David Pakman?
That's true.
So what do you make of that statement? Where are we now?
Well, it's basic economics. Jerome Powell agrees with just basic economics. Tariffs are a tax on imports. It does trickle down. We've found the real trickle down. It's not you cut taxes for the rich and it is great for everybody. The real trickle down is that the tariffs will filter down to the products that we buy. And the stock market is a futures market in the sense that what Jerome Powell said today doesn't today change the profitability of any company. It's forward looking. And the expectation is he's not going to start doing the rate cut bailouts. And it's going to be what every serious economist has said. Not a big surprise.
Cenk, why doesn't this administration, I guess if you knew that, but you'd have a gazillion dollars. Why doesn't this administration agree with just about every economics expert, even former Fed chairs, et cetera? What the hell are they doing? Maybe he doesn't know is the point.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors. Number one, Donald Trump has always believed in tariffs. He's been saying it for like 40 years. And why does he say that? He actually blurts out the answer all the time in different speeches, which is that he thinks that in the 1890s, when we had tariffs and no income tax, that it took care of the government. So if you just have enough tariffs, you won't need an income tax, which is hilarious because it's not the 1890s. Our economy is so drastically different, and his simple mind can't grasp that. So in a sense, he's a true believer. There's a second reason why, though, because they needed to say, hey, you know what? The $5 to $5.5 trillion in tax cuts we're about to do for the richest people in the country and for corporations are no big deal because we got the gold card, we got the Doge cuts and the tariffs. And you know what the tariffs are going to create? Don't worry. The tariffs are going to create $6 trillion in revenue. So you don't have to worry about those giant tax cuts. So that was part of the point of these tariffs. But Trump bungled it, as he always does, which is he did these nuclear global tariffs that were just absolutely insane. And since he doesn't listen to any reason, there's no brakes in the car, he launched them without, listening to Scott Bessent, his own Treasury Secretary, or anyone else. And he did something previously unimaginable. He crashed the stock market and the bond market at the same time. Normally, when the stock market goes down, the bond market goes up. But in this case, it created so much instability that it crashed both of them. So he reverses out of that. And people think like, oh, it's okay. He just left it on China now. No. Yeah. Those tariffs are still significant and relatively nuclear, and it will affect a whole bunch of prices. And Trump's about to get way less popular or become very unpopular when those price increases hit.
Brian, do you agree with that? Is this the thing that's going to change anything?
I would note, Don, that I too have a business degree, an economics degree. So there's economics degree erasure happening right here. Look, I think that Donald Trump is subscribes to the Roy Cohn school of management, and because he barreled ahead with this strategy, now he's just not gonna back up because he views any capitulation as weakness. And so because he started this process, we all have to be on this ride now where he won't change direction, reverse course, which by the way would be the symbol of an actual strong leader to recognize his mistakes and be able to be nimble enough to be able to navigate accordingly. But we just have to continue on this path because he doesn't want to look weak in the eyes of, I don't know, weak people like himself. And so we have to continue in this process. I think he's being ill-served also by the groveling sycophants who he surrounds himself with, because these people have crawled so far up his ass that they can touch the back of his teeth. And he got this weird, distorted perception of how the world works, in that he says jump and everybody says how high. Well, that might have worked for people like, you know, Peter Navarro and Scott Bessent and Jesse Water, whoever's in his cabinet. I don't know what Fox hosts we're talking about today, Pam Bondi. But for these world leaders who are not going to just, you know, take up residence in the protective warmth of his colon, these world leaders like Mark Carney, Emmanuel Macron, and the rest of the world are going to actually push back against this. And so he was ill-served by the fact that he surrounds himself with such a group of yes men that he actually thinks everybody's going to capitulate. And now we're in a standoff with the rest of the world. And if it was just one country, sure, that might have worked. But the world is uniting against the United States. And far from being able to isolate China, we're seeing reporting now that South Korea and Japan are negotiating trade deals with China. We're seeing that the EU is eliminating their tariffs for Chinese EVs. So again, if he thinks that we've got them boxed into a corner, or certainly right-wing media believes that they've got China boxed into a corner, the reality on the ground absolutely defies that notion.
So, Brian, you're saying there's a chance.
So I'm saying there's. Look, I don't think that we should. Obviously, if we've learned anything, is that there are no victory laps in the Trump era. But I think that we also don't want to undermine the importance of the economy. And we just went through a full election cycle in 2024 where we saw just how potent economic factors could be, especially among people who don't really pay attention to politics. And so to everybody on this panel's point, I mean, things are going to start to get a lot more expensive. The stock market is in correction territory right now. 401ks are gutted, and there's really no salvation on the horizon right now.
Yeah. Thank you for everyone for handling the breaking news with me. I appreciate it. Now I want to reflect on the past year and all the chaos that has unfolded and how much has changed. So to kick off this conversation about politics beyond economics, I just want to play. This is a short clip from the last panel we had on our special when Cenk said that he had abandoned Joe Biden and that he would vote for RFK Jr.
I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that.
Could I jump in for a second?
Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. You're a straight talker. You know RFK is not going to win. He doesn't have a chance to win. But you also know that every vote that's not going to Cenk, you know that RFK is not going to be the next president. I think we can all speak plainly here. I mean, you're trafficking in straight denial if you're actually claiming by shaking your head that you think that RFK Jr. has a chance.
Well, I think just to if we're going to ask questions, I would say what are the 5 states he's most likely to have a shot in? Maybe we could start narrow.
Yeah, guys, look, here's the deal. Do I know the third-party candidates have a very, very low chance? Jill Stein, Cornel West, and every other election. Of course,
they have no
chance. I'm not a person who denies reality in any way, shape, or form.
Couple of things I was thinking, what the hell had I gotten myself into? Number 2, right now I'm thinking, here's a story for those boxes that I had up there. And the other thing is how young everybody looked, how the last year has fucking aged us more. I cannot believe it. It's been so crazy. So how do you feel? I mean, RFK obviously did not have a chance, I think.
That's President RFK to you, Don.
Well, I told you he'd be in the administration. Nailed it. Okay, seriously, look, I didn't say RFK Jr. was likely to win. So the point I was making there is that Biden was so badly wounded that even a preposterous candidate like RFK Jr. had some chance of outperforming Biden. Because and I get it, that's the whole point, was RFK Jr. is outlandish and even he's got a shot, right? Because Biden was so badly wounded, he had no chance of winning. And as you all know, that's what I was screaming from the rooftops for a year and a half before the election. And well, I don't want to say I told you, but I told you.
Do you think he told us, Brian? Because you were like, hey, you are delusional. Does not have a chance. And what you said is like, you said that any third party candidate had no chance of winning. And that Cenk was basically delusional about that.
No, but wait, look, before Brian answers, I don't want the framing to shift. I don't give a damn about the third party candidates. And I certainly don't give a damn
Well, that's
about
what the clip was about.
No. That conversation was about how awful Joe Biden is and how we got to get him out of the race, because he might even lose to outlandish third-party candidates because he can't speak. And so was I right about that? Absolutely.
I don't think we would have been in a situation where, even if Joe Biden had stayed in the race, that somebody like RFK would have been able to beat him. I think we could have been at risk of losing states like Minnesota and New Mexico or Illinois, like states that we shouldn't have any business losing. But at the same time, I think I do think it's silly to think that even in this political environment where there's such high polarization and such calcification among the electorate, that no matter who you put up, even somebody as wounded, as incapable of prosecuting the case against Donald Trump as Joe Biden was, that he wouldn't still have been able to win the majority of safe blue states. Is it enough to win the Electoral College? Clearly not, because I do think that Kamala was a better candidate than Joe Biden was, in that she was able to prosecute that case against Trump. The bare minimum we're talking about here, but that she was. I don't know that any Democrat, to be perfectly honest, and this is not me doing apologia for the Democratic Party, because really the solution to this, I think that we can all probably agree, is if Biden would have dropped out in the immediate aftermath of 2020 or 2022. But really, I think that the reality is, I don't know that any Democrat in this economic environment would have been able to win in 2024, given the fact that something we were all talking about before. If you're in a high inflation environment, even those people for whom politics is not a blip on the radar, they feel that stuff. They all go to the supermarket. They all have to buy things, and suddenly everything is more expensive, but their wages are the same. And I think in that environment, it would have been damn near impossible, if not impossible outright, for a Democrat to win. But yeah, in terms of the Biden or Harris of it all, I think the only solution in retrospect, and again, we have the benefit of being able to do Monday morning quarterbacking here, is if a new candidate was fielded who could draw some distance between themselves and the current administration, so that they didn't have to get saddled with all the baggage of a high inflation, fatally wounded Democratic Party and Biden administration.
Okay. Well, David, why don't you say we bring it into the present and to the future? What has disturbed you the most from the second Trump term? Is it Signalgate? Is it Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Trump musing about sending Americans to foreign gulags? What has it been for you?
Well, all of those stories go towards the slide towards authoritarianism. And, I've caught myself on my show saying things like, the Constitution guarantees X. And then I go, wait a second, what does it mean to guarantee something? Yeah. If you can just ignore it, and then there's no mechanism or infrastructure that actually has the teeth to enforce anything. So we're having to kind of—
it's not self-executing.
Yeah. We have to come up with new language to kind of describe. And I kind of catch myself and I say, is meant to guarantee, right? Because that's a very different situation. All of these things combined with MSNBC and 60 Minutes should be taken off the air, the potential deportation of US citizens. I mean, all of these things go to what, unfortunately, we heard some of this stuff is only stuff he's saying. He's not really going to. And we're very quickly finding out that he's at least attempting to do most of it. And now we're in the situation of saying, can we even go and say, no, the Supreme Court is going to ultimately— Supreme Court had a 9-0 decision about this deportation. And for now, they're just kind of saying, no, I don't think we're going to do it. Trump and Bukele looking at each other kind of like, neither one of us has any power to bring him back. The two presidents, they can't do anything to bring one person back. Then they're playing coy with, well, he would immediately be deported again, when really it would be, no, he would immediately be put back into the system, at which the potential deportation would be adjudicated, which is something called due process, which is the way it's supposed to go. So the top line for me is that all of this stuff is about the slide towards authoritarianism and the desire for it. And the biggest concern I'm hearing from my audience, I'd love to hear from Brian and Cenk about it, is a total lack of confidence, both in the checks and balances to actually enforce what is meant to be enforced, but also I'm hearing from people hear a lot from Democrats about how this is very bad, but what's the actual plan here? And is there anything Democrats can or are willing to do? My audience is not super impressed with that second part of the question about the Democratic Party either right now.
Cenk, I want you to weigh in, but that's very interesting. Before you weigh in, I want to put this up. It's from an Axios article, and they're talking about Abrego Garcia. What Democrats say about Abrego Garcia? Should they put it up for me, please, Andy? What should Democrats do? Should they go all in on this? Is this the hill they want to die on? Is this going to be akin to what happened during the election with the trans thing? Doesn't mean that you don't care about Abrego Garcia. It doesn't mean that you don't, that you're concerned about the lack of due process. But what should the messaging be? What should their response be? And so some say, look, we should be focusing on the economy. Democrats should be focusing on the economy, not we, but Democrats. So the sentiment from the party about rallying behind deportees is not universal. The second House Democrat who spoke anonymously, a centrist, called the deportation issue a suit du jour, arguing that Trump is setting a trap for the Democrats and, like usual, we're falling for it. And then goes on to say, rather than talking about the tariff policy and the economy, the thing where his numbers are tanking, we're going to go take the bait for one hairdresser, they said, likely referring to a deported makeup artist. What say you? Can
I take this? Is that all right?
Sure. Yes, go for it.
I've thought about this a lot because obviously there is, what is happening in the news and what we should be talking about from a political perspective. What is most politically advantageous for us? And I'm hyper aware of the fact that Republicans will often set traps, knowing full well that Democrats can get distracted by hearing about climate change and abortion rights and healthcare and immigration and the unions and the wage, whatever it is, and that we'll chase in 10 different directions and muddle down our own message to the point where nothing is sticking. If everything is a 5-alarm fire, then nothing becomes a 5-alarm fire. And I've thought about this a lot. First of all, this is not October of 2026. And so in a scenario where, we would want our closing message, if this was October of 2026, to be the disastrous impacts of Trump's tariffs on the economy, gutting everybody's 401ks, firing people from their jobs, launching a trade war that's going to ultimately decimate the agriculture industry and on and on. That would be one thing. We are in April of 2025 right now. So we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We could and should be talking about the economic issues that are devastating this country, including Trump's own voters, on the very mandate that they elected him to office to talk about. And also, to David's earlier point, this is the beginning. This is, if nothing else, a stand-in for the constitutional crisis that is being ushered in by Trump right now. And if we're not going to speak up when this guy tries to overtly turn the United States into Russia by disappearing legal residents who've done nothing wrong as far as the courts are concerned to a foreign gulag, then what in the world is worthy of our time? And so this is where we do need to focus some attention right now, because if Trump is able to get away with defying not just ignoring due process, which unto itself would be bad enough, but defying a unanimous ruling handed down by the Supreme Court and basically anointing himself a king who doesn't have to abide by the rulings handed down by a co-equal branch of government, then what the fuck are we doing? This is where we do need to focus our attention, because it represents the broader fight, the broader slide toward authoritarianism. And if we're not going to speak up now, we have seen the ways in which silence or capitulation emboldens this guy. We've seen the ways in which the law firms capitulating embolden him to target more law firms. The media outlets capitulating allows him to target more media outlets. These universities capitulating allows him to target more universities. If you give him an inch, he will take a mile. And so if we don't speak up now, when he's trying to anoint himself the king of this country, who can discard the rulings from the highest court in our country, then it will only get worse from here.
So listen, Cenk, sorry, you guys confused. Cenk, my question is, and Brian, look, I don't disagree with you at all. But the last line is what really I want to hone in on. Only if Trump tries to deport U.S. citizens, the lawmakers argued, will Democrats need to draw a line in the sand and shut down the House. So they're saying, don't get out in front of it now. Don't get over your skis, because this could end up, again, as I said, like the transition.
It will, but it will. I mean, like, what are we waiting for him? Like, as if we don't. He said in the Oval Office in front of a dozen reporters, homegrowns are next. Like, we've already seen reporting today out of NBC in Boston. 2 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE and kept for hours. And so we're there. I mean, I don't want to be in a scenario where we're putting our heads in the sand and saying, oh, it couldn't possibly happen. Like, we've seen the Overton window shift every single day, and we refuse to acknowledge that this is going to happen at our own.
No, Brian, I think you misunderstood. It is happening. I believe that we are already in an authoritarian, it's autocracy right now. I believe that we're in a constitutional crisis. Like, I think all of that is happening. Just as I said, that inflation was coming, that, a recession is probably coming, on and on. But I think we're already there. The question is, though, it's about winning. What is the winning narrative? Because the other side doesn't care about the rights for people like Abrego Garcia, but Democrats do. But what's going to get Democrats to win? Is it putting this first, or is it focusing on the economy? That's my question. That's what I want.
So, Don, these last 2 topics are actually connected. So the reason I tried so hard to push Biden out of the race is not because I wanted Democrats to lose, but because I wanted Democrats to win. And we weren't going to win with Biden. We needed to pick the strongest possible candidate. And so I disagree a little bit with what was said before. I think Josh Shapiro could have won. I think Tim Walz could have won. I think there's a number of Democrats who could have beat Donald Trump, even with inflation where it was, if they ran. And I know that because Kamala Harris at the beginning of her campaign was running a more progressive populist campaign against price increases.
But it's over now. But
as it relates to this, it connects. Hold on. I'm going to tell you why it connects. Okay.
Right.
So can we get a right candidate? Can we get right issues to run on instead of constantly attacking Trump, et cetera, in the wrong ways, and the Republicans in the wrong ways? And the answer is absolutely. So then where should we draw the line? Well, some would have wanted us to draw the line at deporting undocumented criminals. Some on the left say, no, even though they're criminals and they're undocumented, it's not right, it's not fair, et cetera, et cetera. And, look, shows can do that, different individuals can do that, et cetera. But would I have recommended the Democratic Party to die on that hill? No. Politically, for the party, do not die on that hill, okay? So, on the other hand, they say, well, if they get the citizens, then we'll start to fight. No, you start to fight right now. You're already too late, okay? You got to get going. There's the same urgency I had with beating Trump in the last time around. You got to get going early. Otherwise, you're going to run out of time. And so you've got to take action. So why start here? So why was I so animated against Trump? Well, because I knew that it wasn't just marketing, that he doesn't believe in the Constitution. He said after the last time he lost that he would terminate the Constitution. He's never believed in our form of government. He's never believed in America.
Cenk, what is it? How does it relate to what we're saying?
Here, what the Democratic Party should do is say, guys, this is about our form of government. This is about Western civilization. That's due process and the courts. If you don't listen to the courts, then we've lost the Constitution. We have 3 branches of government, and the executive must listen to the Supreme Court and to the executive branch. I'm sorry, to the judicial branch. If they don't do that, then we don't have the Constitution anymore. So it's not about somebody who's undocumented. It's not about defending some sort of extreme position. No, his position is extreme. And for God's sake, it's so easy to make that argument. And it doesn't mean, to Brian's point, it doesn't mean you can't make other arguments. And we're not a week out from the election. And you can go out there and go, why is he doing this? If he just stuck with undocumented criminals, that actually, whether we like it or not, would have been popular.
Correct. I agree with that.
He's always pushing the boundaries. No, I want a 3rd term. No, I don't want to listen to the courts. I don't want to do due process. He's gratuitously unconstitutional. So if we don't have Democratic leadership that can make this obvious point and rally people around it and say, meanwhile, while he's doing that, what's happening? Prices are rising. I thought prices were supposed to go down, and they're not, because this guy doesn't know what he's doing. The only thing he knows is He hates our Constitution.
Yeah. So
This is
listen,
super easy to fight back.
Cenk, thank you very much. You know who's saying, which is very interesting to me, is saying the same thing that you're saying, and also saying something similar to what Brian is saying, is Trey Gowdy. At least a broken clock, I think, is right at least twice a day. Stand by, gentlemen. I'm going to take you off because I got to pay the bills. Okay. So listen, the Don Lemon Show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You guys know how I feel about mental health. I like to take the stigma off of it. I talk about my issues with it, with depression, and also, I believe in therapy, and I do online therapy now. I used to do in-person therapy. So let's talk about therapy being accessible, and it should not be expensive. It should not be a luxury. So traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere between $100 and $250 per session, which really adds up fast. With BetterHelp online therapy, you can save on average up to 50%. Okay. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and on time. Again, it should be accessible. It should not be a luxury. With online therapy, you get quality care at a price that makes sense, and it can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's convenient. You can join a session with a click of a button, helping you fit a therapy into your very busy life. Plus, you can switch therapists at any point. So here's what I'm asking you to do, if you will. Your well-being is worth it. BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Don Lemon to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Don Lemon. Go check it out. It's easy. I did it. I actually know someone who just confessed to me that they are using BetterHelp and they actually like it. No lie. That is the truth. So the Don Lemon Show is also brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which is FFRF. You can go there, ffrf.us/freedom. The Freedom from Religion Foundation. Look, I wrote a book. I was on with Mr. Pakman and Mr. Cohen just last year talking about that book, and it was about America being pushed into a theocracy, and that's not what we are. We are a democratic republic, and we should keep it as such. So we don't like people. I know that you don't like people pushing their religious beliefs on you. I don't like it at all. But we have to pay attention because religious nationalism is on the rise. And that's where the Freedom from Religion Foundation comes in. They fight to keep church and state separate, like our founders actually intended. So whether you've always been secular or have left religion behind, believe in keeping faith out of the government, FFRF has your back. So join them or join us. Go to ffrf.us/freedom. or text my first name, Don, to 511-511 and become a member today. Text Don, D-O-N, to 511-511 or go to ffrf.us/freedom, because the only thing worse than someone forcing religion on you is when they do it by law. For membership information, text Don to 511-511 today. Text fees may apply. For that, Mr. Pakman, let's talk about this. I want to continue on with this conversation because unless you want to weigh in on the other thing about whether Democrats should take a different approach and where they should, what level of priority they should place this issue on as they are pushing back.
I'd like to hear what David has to say about that.
I do, but David, let me ask you, because you can answer it in this next question I'm going to ask, because Senator Van Hollen traveled down to El Salvador today to try to meet with, at least contact Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The El Salvadorian authorities denied his request. So do you think Garcia is still alive?
I have no idea whether he's still alive. I do agree that we need to be moving on this now and not waiting. One of the things that I've been going back and forth with my audience about is that individually, a lot of the things that have been happening, you could write off as, quote, performative, right? Cory Booker's 25-hour speech, in and of itself, it's performative. It doesn't get anybody health care. It doesn't get anybody due process. A lot of the coverage now of the deportations, the Bernie AOC rallies, they're not solving poverty when they go and speak to tens of thousands of people in Idaho, or, Van Hollen's thing is a performance. Yes, individually, these are all performances. But one of the problems that's happening right now is that the left is saying, okay, everything was lost by Democrats in November. Trump's a disaster. And yet there's no really coherent story or path to who are the candidates, who are the leaders, what happens in November of 2026. So individually, all of these performances are getting people to pay attention. are activating people. And then it's the what happens between now and November of 2026. So when people write in and say, David, this is all performative stuff, going to El Salvador, it's all, yes, these are all performances meant to engage people and get a critical mass together for what hopefully is going to be some clear and coherent perspective on what needs to happen next. That's not a guarantee that it's going to happen. I'm curious to hear from Brian and Cenk what they believe that coherent approach needs to be. But I don't have a problem with these performances that are taking place right now because they're engaging millions of people.
Mm-hmm. So let me jump in there. So you know, people can call it performance, and it is, and David's right about that, but it's also messaging. And messaging is politics. Media is politics. That's actually what Biden and Kamala Harris got wrong in the last campaign and what Trump got right as a matter of strategy. So you should be in the media and you should do it all the time with your message. And you could have multiple messages at the same time. But in an election, you need to focus more. But guys, one way that you could bring in all of these anti-Trump messages, which he has richly deserved, under an umbrella is, look, he's doing this deportation here, and he's snatching up critics of Israel and, you know, basically kidnapping them with masked men off of streets and doing these nuclear tariffs. It's like all these things are terrible in and of themselves, but they also serve the same purpose, to distract you from the $5.5 trillion in tax cuts that are about to come. And by the way, that has worked brilliantly. Nobody's talking about the $5.5 trillion in tax cuts. And that is going to absolutely destroy our budget, our deficit, and our debt, and is in service of only the elites and the rich. Now, what I'm worried about is that the Democrats don't want to push that message because they kind of secretly like the tax cuts, and their donors love their tax cuts. And I hope that's not the case, but that is a place where you could rally a great majority of the American people and to say, is he serving the average man, or are all of these things a way to distract you so he could funnel trillions of dollars to himself, to his donors, and to the richest people in the country?
Brian, you want to weigh in, or David? Are you good?
Brian, I think Brian, I'd love to hear from Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it absolutely is ripe for exploitation. I think we should be harping on this. The notion that, I mean, the whole administration is just a testament to the fact that this is one big cash grab from the poor to the rich. So this is one big cash grab from the working class to the donor class, and we've seen that manifest itself over and over again. We've already seen it immediately with the fact that Republicans are prescribing $880 billion in cuts from energy and commerce. There's no mathematical way to cut $880 billion from energy and commerce unless you're gutting Medicaid. Same way that there's no way to cut $230 billion from the Agriculture Committee without touching food stamps. Meanwhile, we're seeing Elon Musk get more and more contracts for his federal contracts for his companies. We're seeing that for SpaceX and Starlink and Tesla. I think there was one he had to walk back some State Department contract for Tesla because there was a public outcry over it. But we are seeing that on a daily basis, and that's not just with Elon Musk, although he's an effective villain for the left because it's the literal richest guy in the world who has his hand in all these pots. But more broadly to that exact point, I mean, we are seeing Republicans do all of this to the detriment of the working class. And that's what that tax cut is going to represent. So absolutely, I think it's one more thing that we have to talk about. It almost, the difficult part becomes figuring out when to talk about one thing when we're also talking about a budding constitutional crisis with the El Salvador thing. And you know, that's the problem, is when you have so much overt criminality, and this is by design, we're all hyper aware of it, but it still makes it difficult to be able to speak about everything in a way that feels like it doesn't get lost.
And to Brian's point, you know, a lot of people talk about X is designed and timed to distract from Y. And then someone else goes, no. The real thing is Z, and Y is designed to. I don't think there's any real calculation here. I think this is just a reflection of the utter chaos and the people around Trump who are trying to get their 5 minutes with him to get him to do the thing they care about. I do not believe this idea that Trump said, let's do Liberation Day to distract from the deportations, and then I'll ignore a court. I think it's just chaos all the way down.
I agree. I don't want to ascribe too much strategy to like the rantings and ravings of Donald Trump, and like really what I think is just errant synapses fire in his brain and words fall out of his face. And
I will tell you that every day is produced like a television show. I do know that for a fact. So every day, here's what's happening when it comes to that. So every day, you know, Fox News, right? They go on, they do Fox and Friends, and then they carry it throughout the day on the radio, and then Fox News does its thing all day, and then it comes into the afternoon for the 5. But what Donald Trump does is it's a show. And so they have that morning show where all the people go out and they say one thing. And then the afternoon it comes Caroline Leavitt. She says one thing. 5 minutes later, Donald Trump has a photo op in the Oval Office. He fights with the reporters. It is a show because they want the sound bites from Caroline Leavitt. They want the sound bites from him. He contradicts what she said. It's a fight or whatever. And then he controls the news cycle all day from morning into night. It is a show that they're producing that way. As far as what comes out of his mouth and the synapses firing or not firing, that is totally true. But the entire day, it is produced. And what Steve Bannon said, it is a fire hose of bullshit that they do put out there to distract us, to distract Americans from what is actually going on. One thing that you mentioned, Brian, when you talked about Doge, the Wall Street Journal report saying that, you know, the Biden administration, the Trump administration has spent more money at this time in his presidency than Joe Biden did. And the costs or whatever that Doge is claiming that they made with no evidence and no real receipts, it doesn't even make up for how much money, extra money that the Trump folks have spent. And by the way, Donald Trump is not accomplishing that much. He has signed fewer bills than any president in modern history. So basically, it's all a distraction that he is just shoving out to the media, who he has in the palm of his hand, and it looks like a big show that he's great and he's doing, but he's not. He's actually really harming and ruining the country, and he's not accomplishing anything.
Don, if this was ever actually about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, do you really think they would have started with USAID? We have an agency in the Pentagon that's failed 7 audits. It is ripe for investigation by something like Doge. If Doge was created for anything, it should be to go after the Pentagon and figure out what the fuck is going on in the Pentagon. And yet you go after USAID, 0.7% of the budget that delivers clean food and water to impoverished people, and goes and offers HIV prevention and gives us soft power in the world so that China doesn't step in our absence, all without firing a single bullet. That's what you go after. You go after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has returned $21 billion to 200 million American consumers. It only exists to serve as a way for Americans to have some recourse against predatory financial institutions. Of course, this wasn't about giving back. Of course, this wasn't about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Every single agency that Elon Musk went after was an agency that was regulating or imposing fines on him or his companies. It is so abundantly clear what the purpose of this was, which is why at the end of the day, they had to bring their pie in the sky savings from $1 trillion down to 150 billion. And yet still this government is still spending more money than the previous administration.
By the way, who do you think deported more migrants, and I believe undocumented people, Joe Biden at this time in his presidency or Donald Trump?
I would guess Biden.
I'm assuming, by virtue of the fact that you asked the question,
it's Joe Biden. But you know what they weren't doing? They weren't putting out ASMR and cruel videos with people in shackles, and that's the difference. He was actually doing his job, right? Not putting on a show, as I say every single day. Did you think Trump would go this far, this fast, David? By the way, Cenk froze. He's trying to reset and come back if he doesn't.
Yeah, Cenk very quietly disappearing. Very.
I know he pulled a ghost move on us.
No, I mean, listen. Yes,
it raises some questions about whether Cenk was benefiting from some of those USAID payments. You know.
I did expect it to be this bad this quickly. And, you know, half my audience agreed. Half my audience thought it was a little bit overblown, but I did expect it to be this bad this quickly. And it's raising a morbid curiosity about if the first 3 months are this insane, what will things be like in September? What will things be like in September of next year? I mean, it's hard to, I don't think there's really any prediction that you could dismiss out of hand as too hyperbolic just based on these first 3 months. One other thing I think just bears some mentioning. Every couple days, there's a story about a crack in MAGA. You know, some billionaire says, "Oh no, the tariffs are too much," or whatever the case may be. And there's Cenk is back. Very, very nice. You know, the whole cracks in MAGA narrative, all of the ones I've looked at more closely seem to be some rich, usually dude, who doesn't care about the authoritarianism, doesn't care about the deportations, is really only concerned that stocks are going down, or it's like a personal financial interest. And so I would be careful about putting too much stock in the cracks in MAGA narrative.
Yeah. So look, real quickly, I know that you guys, all have very busy things. This is important stuff, but I want to get this in. This is a lightning round, okay? I want to know what you guys think about the Bezos rocket. Is it tone deaf? I have something coming out I'm going to write, and I said, you know, when you surround yourself with people who, you know, kind of look like you and think like you and sort of, you know, in the same financial bracket as similar as you may find it hard to read the room, let alone read the planet. I don't know if you guys, how you feel about that. Hey, more power to them. What it's done for women, girls, I think is great, but I just think it was kind of tone deaf for them to do it. I'm not calling anybody out personally. What do you guys think?
So since I lost the internet connection, first,
it's the lightning round, Cenk. Remember that.
Yeah, okay, real quick though, because what you guys were talking about is really important. Guys, nobody expects cracks in MAGA within 3 months. If you do, you're being super unrealistic. And we want to win over independent voters. Those are the ones that are the most important. You got to win the independents, not MAGA. That Jeff Bezos trip, couldn't care less. Don't care that they went. Don't care about the criticism. Sorry.
I actually think the optics of it are helpful in the sense that it puts on full display the disparity in the priorities between the two different classes of people. We have a working class in this country that is hurting right now for exactly the reasons that Trump exploited when he was running for president, but has since forgotten about. And now it's even worse because now the stock market has crashed, the economy has crashed, 401ks have been gutted, and the cost of everything are going to go up. And yet, for that class of people, for that the donor classes we were talking about before, to be taking rockets up to outer space, I think puts on full display the glaring disparity between who you know, Jeff Bezos was on the dais behind Donald Trump, you know, when he was getting sworn in, between the people who this administration, this White House are seeking to help, and the rest of Americans. I think that disparity being put on full display really does tell the entire story.
Brian, I know you have to go. I'm just going to put this picture up. You can respond or leave it, whatever. This is Gretchen Whitmer. What happens to her political career now after this photograph, after she went to the office, the Oval Office last week? Yeah, who cares? Brian, why don't you weigh in and I'll let the other guys, because I know you got to run.
Look, I think we're in a 5-minute news cycle. I don't think it's going to have. I think and on one hand, you know, good for her for trying to go and figure out how to play the game and kiss his ass because she's trying to deliver for the people of Michigan, and you have to kiss his ass if you want to do anything. On the other hand, I think she should have expected the fact that she would be lured in to be a prop in whatever insidious plan Trump was going to use to ultimately hurt her. So it doesn't really, I don't care, you know, like,
I think that picture is worse than if she had actually just showed her face.
I think so. But frankly, we live in a 5-minute news cycle. No one's going to remember this. This is not going to stick to Gretchen Whitmer, nor do I think it really should. But ultimately, you know, she probably should have expected that he would use weapons against her that he ultimately did.
Thank you, Brian. Get out of here. Go do your thing. All right.
Thanks,
David,
can I weigh in on the rocket?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. Love space exploration. I think it's awesome. At the same time, Lauren Sanchez and Katy Perry and calling them astronauts, I don't think exactly is pushing the front lines of space exploration. And I am not 100% on this, but there's a video floating around where Jeff Bezos goes and like uses a tool to open the thing, but apparently it was completely contrived because the door accidentally opened early. Like the tool was completely superfluous. And so especially if that's true, it's just like a completely stage managed performance that is not the type of performance that I think helps anything.
Yeah. Okay.
On Gretchen Whitmer, it's embarrassing. I think it's going to stick with her longer than Brian does. But to me, there is actually a larger issue there, which is Democrats don't have a core. That's why they're always flummoxed and they don't know what to do. Oh, do we fight on this? Do we not fight on this? Do we work with Trump on Michigan, or do we cover our face in shame? No, I think the answer is actually pretty simple. You say, hey, listen, I'm working with Trump on this thing here in Michigan because the citizens of Michigan needed it. I'm their governor. So I'm proud to work on that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm delivering
She didn't really
for my
say this
state.
thing as much. She said
Yeah.
afterwards,
And then say, look, and on the other things that he was saying in the room when I was there, well, I don't like those things. And I don't agree with Trump on that. What's so hard about that?
Yeah, I think that's right. And, you know, sometimes it's lost on people that governors are very different than members of the House or Senate. Governors are really administrators, and they're much more so working on the nitty gritty of a lot of these things that immediately and directly affect the people that live in these states. So I don't have any problem. I think it was just managed incorrectly the way Cenk's pointing out.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Cenk. I guess we know you cut out because, you know, you don't like us, but that's okay.
No,
because
like
we are your worst nightmare.
You know, I feel like you guys were talking about stuff that I really wanted to weigh in on while I was gone. I was bummed. I think it's actually, Bezos or Trump or Elon cut my wires. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's space or whatever, the satellites. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you
I
done?
just want to say one last thing here. Don, thank you for putting this together, brother. I love these conversations, right?
Yeah.
So we got to talk to each other. We got to have different ideas on how to win or strategize or what we think is the right thing to do. So anything that brings us together like this is awesome. So everybody subscribe to Don's channel and encourage these kind of conversations. Subscribe to David Pakman, to Brian Tyler Cohen, to the Young Turks. Just make sure you're hearing everybody out and that you're getting all the different voices on the left on how we can win. So I appreciate it, Don.
Well, you said exactly similar to what I was going to say. We should all stick together, and I love seeing all four of us on screen. We should get Jim Acosta here and Tim here as well, and it would be great to have all of those folks. Tim over at the Bulwark. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. I will see you soon. I'll be watching. I watch you guys all the time. Cenk, sometimes I want to throw shit at the TV when I see you, and then I see you on Piers Morgan, and I'm like, you guys you got a stronger constitution than I do, because I would lose my mind. Okay, thank you guys. Love you. See you later. Have a great evening.
Take care.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you for what Cenk said, helping us to build this channel. We need to build an echo system, not a what did I want to say, an echo chamber, to make sure that people get the truth in these issues. So we appreciate you joining us. Make sure you become a member. The membership link should be at the top of the chat. Also, we are nominated for a Webby. I don't know if there's a Webby thing at the top of the chat, so you can click there if you become a member, but we'll put the Webby. We have 2 more days of voting, okay? And so if you want to become a member, you can do that anytime. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and also go vote for our Webby, okay? So as I say always, when I'm about to leave you, because I got to go to support a friend and doing something who's being honored tonight, I'm going to head out of here. So we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Also, we're going to drop something at 8 o'clock tonight. So make sure you check that out, okay? So turn this TV off. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will